What is happening, Dolphins fans, and welcome to another episode of Finn's Tailgate with your host, El Capitan. Tonight on the tailgate party that never seems to stop. Oh, man. We're going to dig up a dead body. Y'all want to see a dead body? Y'all want to drag out the dead carcass? Here's the thing, right? I'm just going to do a quick once-over. Tensions between fans in the Miami Dolphins community amongst each other have been relatively calm the past 18 months, right? There's been a lot of back and forth before that about this quarterback, about the coach, about the team and organization and ex-head coach and just stuff like that, right? And it was every couple of years we would go at each other's throats and, do all that stuff. But we've been rather in agreement as of late, Dolphins fans. Well, that all changed today. So hit the like button on your way in. Subscribe if you're new. If you're watching on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, X, wherever you are, come over to YouTube. Subscribe over here. If you're listening on the Apple Podcast, on Spotify, anywhere you can find your podcast, make sure you guys are going to tftgnetwork.com and or coming here to YouTube and subscribing here on the network to get in on the show. We're going to get into all this stuff and how we're pulling out a dead body.
Turner Yell makes the stop in the secondary for Denver. 1st and 10. The fake. Good. Block in there, and down it goes. Caught at the 30. This is the dynamic Hill. He's in for 6. Tyreek Hill. Touchdown. What a block.
Take into your hands a plan, your own hands can land your own brand. And damn, I feel like no one takes accountability. They want the credibility, convincingly unwilling to put in the hours it takes to get some power. Don't be f***ing sour, take a cold shower, scream until you're louder, work until you're prouder, and f*** all the doubters, they're just your downers. I swear to God they all let me down. I always fought just to wear the crown. I'm off, it's these fucking clowns who were all taught they deserve it now. It's only worth it if you work for it.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome again to another episode of the Finn's Tailgate with your host, El Capitan. Hit the like button, subscribe over here on YouTube, share the videos, all the good stuff you guys already know. I'm not going to waste time on this, man. I mean, look, today, interview with Tua Tagovailoa and the Dan Le Batard show. Homies down here in South Florida. Tua finally broke the metaphorical silence and actual silence on his true feelings of one Brian Flores. Now, I think we all understand, right, that there has been some tension, right? A lot of stuff talked about between these guys and butting heads. And, look, there's just I mean, look, right? And I'm going to add context to all this. Because I've been listening. I've been talking with people, on X and some spaces here and there, listening to how people are reacting to the news that came out with this interview. And I'm going to play the interview audio for you guys to hear what Tua said that sparked this entirety, right? And some fans are not happy about Tua saying this, right? For the reasons I kind of opened the show with. We've been quiet. There's togetherness now. Like, even the fan base is kind of, a lot of the naysayers, there's some holdouts on Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins as it currently sits, right? You don't even have to love Tua Tagovailoa to look at this Dolphins team and be excited about it. You could love the coach. You could love the playmakers. You know what I'm saying? You could look at this team and minus any player you may not like or coach you may not like and still be excited about this Miami Dolphins team. So in that way, people are, coming to the table. And Tua Tagovailoa was the best passer in the NFL last year. Those are the facts. You can dissect that any way you want, but the fact remains, had the most yards per game, number one in the NFL last year. That's it. And was 1, 2, or 3 in all categories that matter to quarterbacks. So my point is that for this to come out now, it's it kind of, I don't want to say it sucks, right? Because I'm going to look at it from every side of the coin here, because there is people on the fan base that are, not happy with Tua saying this, because we are kind of coming to the table, and the people that are on the fence about Tua are kind of, just putting that aside to support the team in a way that they're not going to dog Tua like they have in the past. You feel me? So they don't necessarily like Tua, but they're not going to make their displeasures and or hatred for him, take away their fandom for the team. They're going to put that aside, kind of deal with them, and look at him hopefully in a newer lens. Well, to a lot of people in the fan base that were on the fence, this is the nail in the coffin. They think that this was a classless move by Tua Tagovailoa. They think that this is ill-timed, makes the team look soft. That was words that I heard. A lot of people saying that this makes Tua look soft, makes this team look soft, and made the organization look soft. And that's, whatever, right? You can debate that, because I got to be honest, when you talk about bullying and stuff like that, now granted, right, like I'm not going to stand across from Brian Flores and tell him to go, stick it where the sun don't shine and square up with homie, right? But I ain't going to let a motherfucker push a bitch around none neither. I'll take an ass whipping before I take disrespect all my life. You know what I'm saying? My point is that some people are saying Tua's soft for not standing up to him, and that this is a weasel type of move by Tua Tagovailoa to now come out and dredge up the dead body carcass and throw it onto the fan base, who a significant portion of which are trying to come to the table with Tua Tagovailoa. And there's also people in this fan base that are saying, listen, Tua now is doing the happy dance. He got paid. He has this confidence. And now he's basically given a big middle finger to all the people that ever doubted him, even though they don't doubt him now, but that you ever doubted him, F you. That's the sentiment some people are taking. And I'm going to go ahead and just play the audio here, right? I just want you guys to hear it. And we'll decide in chat, and I'm going to shout out everybody in chat too, because I don't think I forgot about you guys. But let me know in chat if you guys can hear this. Let me know.
Can you explain to us the difference in practical terms between having a coach who did believe in you the way that he did, and the difference between that and what was happening with Flores?
Yeah. Well, to put it in simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate, you are the best whatever, you are this.
Okay, hold on. We're gonna hold it up just right there, right? Tua, in the first part of this, says you have someone that when you go into work every day, they call you a piece of shit. They tell you you're worthless. They tell you that you shouldn't be here. You don't deserve this. It's crazy, right? Like, anybody watch the show The Bear? Anybody know the show The Bear? It's on Hulu. It stars that dude from I don't know. Anyhow, it's about this guy who starts his own Michelin star restaurant. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to make the perfect best restaurant, and he's got this super, crazy quirkiness about him. And they tell a little bit of his back tale. And one guy that you kind of get to the crux of it, that he's trying to prove this one guy wrong by making a great restaurant and great dishes. And that dude that was doing that was like, you're the fucking worst. I don't even know what you're doing here. You're such a piece of, like, he was just drilling him day in and day out. If you haven't seen the show The Bear, check it out. It's all right, honestly. Anyhow, that's kind of what he's talking about, right? Like, he's being demoralized day in and day out. Now, some people look at that and go, I'm gonna make them pay. And others, you think I'm gonna make them pay, but maybe you don't even get your chance, right? But on the flip side, now he's talking about Mike McDaniel and how positive of effect it has in the adverse, right? Which is what we were hearing out of a lot of people about, like, hey, negativity, negative nonsense, he performs negatively. You give him positive nonsense, and he's going to perform positively. Seems so simple, doesn't it? Seems all so simple. Let's continue.
This, you are that. Like, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? You see what I'm saying? And then you hear it, regardless of what it is, the good or the bad. And you hear it more and more. You start to actually believe that. I don't care who you are. You could be the president of the United States. You have a terrible person that's telling you things that you don't want to hear, or that you probably shouldn't be hearing. You're going to start to believe that about yourself. And so that's sort of like what ended up happening. And it was, it's basically been 2 years of training that out of not just me, but a couple of the guys as well that have been here since my rookie year all the way till now.
So CCRR says Karen Tagovailoa. That's a good burn, dude. Not gonna lie, that's a pretty good burn. I don't know. Like, okay. Right. Let's unpack this real quick. Hit the like button. Shout out to everybody in chat. Who's in here first? Omar Brown. What's happening, buddy? Don't doubt it. Says, gave an honest answer. Don't know why people are hating on him. I don't know why they're hating on him either. And I'm going to talk on both sides of the context here. DeVore, what's up? Daniel Barry, what's going on? John Featherland, Tim, Color in here. What's up, Color? Cap for Life. What's good, Cap? V21, Raph, Mr. Polk, the Mad Tribal Chief, Scummy. What's going on? CCRR, J Miami Sports. What's good, dude? Miss Fins. Hey, Bryson in here. What's up, everybody? Hit the like button. B McD. What am I missing? Jets fan for life. Hit the like button. If I missed anybody, I'm sorry. Hit the like button, guys. So anyhow, right? Well, the big quote taken from that is that Tua said that in this scenario, talking about Brian Flores, he said, you have a terrible person telling you this all the time. I don't care who you are, you're going to believe it. And there is something to that, right? Like when you're stuck having to go somewhere, because especially when it's your job, right? Because you need your job. You need your job. You got to go there. You got to work. And I mean, quite frankly, He's ultra stuck. He's got a contract there, right? And I will say this. Let's just take to a face value that this was happening, right? All the time, no matter what. And there was malice behind it, not a guy trying to take some obscure militant aspect into driving this person, right? That there's no hidden agenda that had some silver lining. This was all hate and malice on the end of Brian Flores, right? So say that is the fact. A couple of things, right? Number one, man, dude, if it's just hate and malice, that's a hard thing to overcome. And when you're stuck somewhere in a contract, at least we can look at Tua didn't try to get himself out of Miami. Like, if that was the case and it was complete malice, and we're gonna take the most extreme of what Tua's talking about. Good thing is that look, he didn't try to force his way out of Miami. And there is some nobility in that when obviously if that's the case, that person was trying to get you to do something. And if he stood his ground by not running to the owner, running the gym, running to his agent saying, you need to get me out of here. I don't want to be here no more. He didn't take to social media. He didn't take to, he went in there and took his lumps for what seems to be a poor reasonings, right? Not ain't the lumps you're supposed to take. He was the abuse, we'll call it, right? Being abused. And that's what a lot of people want to talk about, mental abuse. And I just got to say, two grown men athletes, one verbally abusing the other, it's not something that I can't fathom. It's just something I don't know, dude. Like, I don't know. Again, he is a younger man at this time. And the Tua we see before us today talking about it, that's a grown man now. He's a married man. He's a father. You know what I'm saying? Like, the person you see now from the person that was there with Brian Flores those 2 years, that was a younger man, a guy coming off injury. Psychologically, of such, you get a injury, there's a psychological thing to overcome. Your mortality is tested. You have broken bones, healing. It's not just the physical part, but the mental part of that healing. And I can't even imagine trying to do all that. I broke my femur, and there's a whole thing. First time I ever been depressed ever in my life. But again, the fact that I couldn't walk, it drove me to push faster, and I was up walking faster. But I do know, like, wow, you're more, it sucks. You're fucking hemmed up, dude. You can't do nothing. You ain't going nowhere. You know what I'm saying? That's a rough thing to face. And if Tua was going through that, and like I said, in this scenario, there was absolute malice in that, then fine. Let's continue down that rabbit hole. Because again, I said, I was walking in 6 months too. So, say again, isn't it having the positive effect on Tua now that maybe Brian Flores intended all along? Now, I want you to really hear me on that, right? I'm gonna gear back from the malice intent to a guy that wanted to have a guy, I don't know, man, not defeat him, but prove him wrong. And if you were able to prove him wrong, it would be this wonderful thing. I don't think that's his true intent. But I'm saying now that Tua, grown man, just got an extension with this team, just was the best quarterback in the NFL in passing yards and metrics and all that stuff last year, right? All those things. And it's obviously on his mind a little bit. I mean, he was asked a question, but he answered it in a candid way, differently than he has in every other scenario when asked about Brian Flores, right? It is driving him, and it should. And I say use it. Allow that to drive you, Tua. Allow that to drive you. That's what I say. Allow it to drive you. Bryson, such a great quote by you, dude. Sometimes your haters help you more than your cheerleaders. Yes. Pressure makes diamonds. Tua isn't even a Cuban Zarkodiak. Okay. I thought you were doing something nice there, Scummy. I was like, oh, look at Scummy. No. My point is that Tua should continue on this trajectory. He should revisit this every time. Yeah, remember that guy, Brian Flores? He was such a dummy. He thought I wasn't going to be able to cut it. Well, look at me now, winning Super Bowls, turning around a franchise, all the superstars from Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and everybody wants to play with me here in Miami. Like, do that. Give me salty, spicy Tua with a chip on his shoulder. I think it's good. I think it drives you. I think you should always have your biggest critic be yourself, and that be the one you're always trying to break and attack, and that's a whole other fucking tale. But you know, use it. Now, interesting enough, right? There was a little bit of a response from the GOAT, right? Let me from Tom Brady here about all this, and he had a little bit something to say about hard coaching, right? And Tom Brady, quarterback of the New England Patriots, back when Brian Flores was there. And we constantly hear this about the coaches that come off the Belichick tree, that they're stoic. It's one-way motherfuckers, right? And they coach hard, and they go hardest on the best players. And Tom Brady had something to say about this, so listen up.
That if the coach was going to be hard on me, I was going to accept the difficult coaching because I needed to hear it. And again, it motivated me. And there was a lot of players on our team that would see me get coached hard, and that they would say, okay, I got to step my game up because I don't want to get yelled at. Tom's getting yelled at. I don't want to get yelled at. Yeah. How do I up my game? And I think that's what accountability looks like. And you can't be, so.
That's what accountability looks like. Is Tom Brady taking shots at Tua Tagovailoa on this? Is Tom Brady taking shots? Listen again.
How do I up my game? And I think that's what accountability looks like. And you can't be, so have your ego so big that, any criticism is going to, lessen your confidence. I mean, look, you're going out there in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks in Vegas, and you got hundreds of millions of people watching. You better be tough at that point. You better have not go in there with, a weak attitude.
Fragile.
I think you got to go in there and you got to embrace the challenge, embrace the opportunity. You're going to be tested. And if your coach tests you and your teammates test you, then you can go beat your competition.
I mean, we're talking about the GOAT here, right? We're talking about Tom Brady. You could coach him tough. Now look, right? To me, this is where I'm going to cook. It was oil and water, right? And there was people that say that Brian Flores actively tried to sabotage Tua Tagovailoa. That's the word on the street. That's the common core belief from a lot of people. And it's all but become, some of these creators out here, it's become fact. And maybe it's true. Maybe, when the Dolphins selected Tua Tagovailoa, they gave him to a coach that didn't want him, who admittedly wanted Jordan Love, as it's come out later, which, say what you want about Jordan Love, I'm not a fan of Jordan Love, but that's who he wanted at the time. They didn't get him Jordan Love. We do know that the Dolphins tried to move up to get Joe Burrow and was willing to give up everything. I will say this. It's not like the Dolphins didn't try to go get Deshaun Watson. And as a friend of mine, as you guys know and love him, Lou pointed out that the owner had 18 of the 22 girls ready with contracts to sign for Deshaun Watson to help bring him to Miami. And let's not also forget that the Dolphins courted Tom Brady, who we just heard from. On whose boat? The owner's boat. That's who. Along with whom? Chris Greer. Now, I do remember somebody coming out and saying that they were not on board with that, whether or not that was for Tom Brady or not. Whatever. But Brian Flores did not want to be involved in the Tom Brady thing. I don't believe it was because he was like, we can't do this to Tua Tagovailoa. But it doesn't matter, right? My point of this is that equally that the team recognizes, or the fan base recognizes, that Brian Flores was actively trying to sabotage Tua Tagovailoa from being the quarterback of that team that he was coaching. And we'll even throw out everything the upper brass organization did for not just 2 years, but they did it, just the year before last with Deshaun Jackson. Lamar Jackson. Why did I say Deshaun Jackson? Anyhow, yeah, let's go get Deshaun Jackson too on this. Imagine the speed, right? No, Lamar Jackson at quarterback, inquiring about him. My point is that Flores actively trying to, sabotage him, right? That's the word we use. Isn't it equally likely that the organization was actively trying to sabotage Brian Flores? I'm just saying, right? They didn't get the quarterback he wanted. They got him a quarterback they wanted instead. As soon as they got that quarterback, they didn't want him, and they tried to get two other quarterbacks in the meantime, one of which in a manner that the head coach you had didn't like and didn't want to participate in. And TJ, you're saying something here. They fired Flores for not tanking. And I just want to point something out, and I said this earlier, right? And I'm going to ruffle some feathers with this, and I don't really care. Because fuck you guys. How about that? Hit the like button before this happens, because no one's going to want to hear it, really. But it's kind of taboo to say, but we know for a fact that African American men that go get head coaching jobs, it's few and far between. It's just the facts. Everybody talks about it every other year, it seems like. And we heard a lot about it when we hired Brian Flores and all that stuff. I would say equally shocking of that stat of the quarterbacks, of the head coaches that do get these opportunities that are African American men, find themselves in the same situation Brian Flores found himself, as the same situation as the Houston Texans coach found himself in recently, that they are inheriting a team that is most certainly tanking, most certainly set up to be a failure. And it's only in which those guys have to, I mean, look, how long are we going to see a, they got to ask themselves, they go, look, I'm only going to get this one opportunity, right, to be a head coach. And also that let's not act, dude, it's so painfully obvious, right? We know it's the good boys club. We know all this other nonsense. We know that there's probably some scenario in which they're like, hey, you come in, you run this team, it's all yours, but we kind of need you to tank. You play good boy, right? You play, hey, I'm going to be a team player. Next thing you know, you're sitting on a 3 or 4 win season and they're firing you on a lame duck. You get to keep the money as if you were here the 4 years, 5 years that I signed you for, but they were setting you up for failure all along. I've seen the examples in real time. And anyhow, Dolphin fans forget, right? We forget how much we liked Flores in that tank year for not tanking. Winning, I think it was 5 out of the last 8 games. Yeah, I think we were mad that we didn't get the number 1 overall pick. We're like, we can't even tank, right? It was a bit of a running joke. But there was also something immensely impressive of a coach that took guys that had no business being in starting lineups in the NFL and not just play well, but won games and won some decent games again in some rough outings and really had some good stuff to cheer upon and beat the Patriots in the final game of the year to hurt them in their playoff odds that, really screwed up their entire run there, right? And we saw a coach that we're like, wow, this guy gets some groceries and we get a quarterback, we got it made. Well, the quarterback in which we wanted, the quarterback in which they got, everything fell apart there, right? It did. And, I don't want to say, if you want to tell me that Brian Flores got fired or let go because, the back office blow-ups that happened. But let's not act like anybody who knows they're getting pushed out of somewhere isn't going to have a back office blowout, right? Who the fuck? Anyhow, but his inability to hire or handpick or find a coaching staff that would work together with him on the offensive side of the ball to get some stability there, that's reason enough to let a guy go. But that wasn't what we were sold, and that's not what we're still selling today, and it's not what we just heard Tua Tagovailoa talk about a terrible man that actively sabotaged him. And I just want to, for playing devil's advocate here, the organization actively, sabotaged Brian Flores as equally as Brian Flores actively sabotaged Tua Tagovailoa. And ultimately, the responsibility falls upon the organization for an absolute shit show and mishandling of Tua Tagovailoa in the first 2 years of his career, and absolute mishandling of Brian Flores the final 2 years of his 3 years here at Miami. And it has still been a black eye on this community, and it continues to be such. And I hope, feel, and pray, and it looks like to me like these times are a little bit behind us right now. But I will say to those that don't like Tua for piping up about it, I agree on the sentiment that this was the last thing I wanted to talk about. I didn't want to go through this. It's got the fucking fans going back at each other, this whole thing. And that's kind of on Tua for dredging that up. But in the same token, I feel it. Like Tua, grown man, different guy than he was 2 years ago, got paid, feeling confident, feeling good, best passer in the NFL last year. He's like, that guy fucked me, right? And he's got to be him. He got to be him too. And I feel it. So ultimately, for everyone who's taking a side one way or the other, saying Tua was terrible for doing this and Brian Flores got screwed, or on the other side is Brian Flores must die. He's a terrible person, and how dare he do that to my beloved Tua Tagovailoa. I would say don't get your feelings all wrapped up in other personal dynamics between people. I understand it in the fan sense. I understand it in the drama and the stuff I like to get into. But I also want you guys to realize that you don't know, you can never fully perceive someone's feelings or all the things involved. And I hope I laid it out for you in a way that makes you guys understand that Tua's not wrong for feeling the way he's feeling now. And probably during the time, Brian Flores handled it probably, would a wiser, older, time separated would probably Brian Flores go, I probably handled it wrong with Tua. And Tua probably responded back wrong as well. And that's kind of just how we ended up to where we are. Would I like it to die? Yes. If it's not going to die, it might as well be what drives to it. And if it's going to drive him to be the best quarterback in the NFL and win the Miami Dolphins a trophy and a Super Bowl, I hope he gets up on there. He goes, this was for you, Stephen Ross, and you, Brian Flores. Fuck you. Like, okay, make that happen. Take it all the way to the finish line. Because I will say this, right? Every time you do this, you start over the hater clock. And the haters are going to sit there with their receipts and they're going to wait. And they're going to be like, oh, okay. Okay. And, here's a little bit of something from some of that.
It's a lot easier to flourish under a coach and be given self-confidence after you trade for Tyreek Hill, who someday is going to go to the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. And that is something that happened between the end of Brian Flores and the beginning of Mike McDaniel. So let's not pretend as if all things were equal here. They really stepped up their wide receiver room year over year, and that's a huge reason why Tua has been successful.
And that is absolutely true. And there is some naysayers on the opposite end of this spectrum that have something to say about, well, look at what Tua was given. And it's like, yeah, but that's also what the coach had to work with, right? And we'll play a little bit of that too. But this is what door opens up for critics on Tua, who got the door opened up anyhow because of the big deal contract. And there's been some people that feel like he has more to prove, or the Dolphins should have taken the fifth year to figure it out. But now he's kicked that door wide open. And hey, if you want to kick that door wide open and come out in your robe on with, open and acting like you all that and shit with a cigarette out your mouth and your gold tooth shining and being like, fuck you bitches. Hell yeah. Let's go full thug life on these motherfuckers then. And if that's what Tua's going to do, fucking bet, dog. I'll drink a beer at 9 a.m. with him and everything. I'll get down, but let's not try to throw stones, and when the glass breaks in the house, go, shit, I got to clean this mess up. No, just keep throwing stones. Let's break this bitch.
But I will give Tua this. When you go from Brian Flores to Mike McDaniel, what you go from is Bill Belichick and his style to a 21st century thinker. Brian Flores spent like a decade and a half in New England, and I would have to imagine over that decade and a half, he mimicked or at least learned every single motivational strategy that Bill Belichick threw at his players. And that was a really successful way to coach for 2 decades with the Patriots. It is also a strategy that we saw kind of wear thin at the end, and probably one that was at least in large part why Mac Jones was ruined. So it doesn't exactly surprise me that we got to this position, but at the same time, we should also consider the fact that Tyreek Hill has a lot to do with the reason why Tua is where Tua is.
I mean, yeah, I think it would be fair to state that
you want to talk
the Bill Belichick way, the stoic dog on the guys who make the most money type of action, has worn thin on the NFL. has worn thin on players and the way these athletes can make money, not just through their contracts, but just through their superstardom. And now a college kid's making money and high school kids, man, you ain't going to be able to treat people like this. You're going to go, fuck you. I'm going to take my $1.1 million and go, take my 1.5 million TikTok followers, and I'm going to do that for the next couple of years. And I'm going to finance my friend's fucking gym and I don't know, whatever the fuck. Right. They're just not going to deal with that shit. And yeah, if you want to, listen, you want to say that those kids are soft? I kind of agree with you. Like, quit being a pussy. Shut up and take the freaking coaching. But at the same time, if you want to say fuck you and you got the means to tell someone to fuck you and mean it and do it, then more power to them, motherfucker, right? Damn. It's a weird dynamic in history that we live right now, right? So, on the flip side, people are saying, oh, Tua got better, da-da-da-da-da. But this guy, the haters, now that the door's open, saying, well, of course you got better. You got Tyreek Hill. But here's Warren Sharp, who, listen, Warren Sharp has some awesome analytics and stuff like that. And he's a diehard Tua and Dolphins fan. But he does lean real heavy in the love for Tua Tagovailoa. And that's fine. It's cool. More power to the homie, right? But he kind of, I think he's cooking with stats and analytics here, but I feel like he kind of cooks himself by the end of it. And just listen in.
Under Brian Flores, let's do it. Tua's rookie season was 2020. Second season was 2021, both of which were under Brian Flores. His rookie season and his second season, you know where the Dolphins offensive line ranked? Dead last. They were the worst in pass block win rate. They were the worst in PFF grades, the worst offensive line in the league. His receiving core those 2 years, you know where they ranked? Dead last in wide receiver separation. They could not get open. His number one receiver was Devontae Parker. We know his problems. His number two was a tight end, Mike Gesicki. Number three was Jalen Waddle, who he only had for one season. And number four was a running back, Myles Gaskin.
Okay, I'm going to hold it right there because not only did Tua have all of those things that he's talking about to work with, a terrible offensive line and terrible weapons, Brian Flores and the offensive coordinators had to work with that as well as a young quarterback that's learning to get into the game in the NFL coming back from a bad injury. So I don't see how that's a strike in the direction of Brian Flores. Fans, uneducated fans, often try to say that Brian Flores wanted all this or something, like it was his decision. No, it was the failure of the organization to supply the things that this team needed to be successful. That's how we ended up with the worst wide receiving core and the worst offensive line during those 2 year spans that Warren Sharp is talking about. So what are we talking about here, right? Like, I don't understand how that's cooking in the other direction. It's a wash at best. And it only further pontificates the point that I was making earlier, that the organization could equally be fucking sabotaging Brian Flores. Let's continue.
An utter catastrophe of guys, mostly with limited skill and no ability to separate. They also ranked second to last in yards after the catch, obviously, because they were not being able to get open. The receivers couldn't contribute it. The offense wasn't designed to give it, which brings me to coaching. His rookie season, the offense was designed by a formerly retired 64-year-old Chan Gailey. He comes out of retirement to design the offense for Ryan Fitzpatrick. It was COVID, and Tua's rehabbing this ridiculous hip injury that ended his college career.
Okay, so it was COVID. Tua's coming back from injury. They've got Ryan Fitzpatrick in, and they brought in a play caller of offense that Ryan Fitzpatrick can can be successful in, all pointing to signs where a red shirt freshman year came in. And I feel like Dolphins fans, myself included, were prepared for that. Although we wanted to see Tua, I don't know. I could have lived without seeing him his rookie year, to be honest with you, because I thought it would have been better for him in a health standpoint. Shout out to Shake, who's the homie. This between two grown men. We haven't won a playoff game in 24 years. Let them box it out. Money goes to charity. I don't know if that's a good idea, because as big and as strong as everything as that Tua has gotten these last couple of years, I don't think he wants to be in a phone booth with fucking Brian Flores, bro. I wouldn't want to be in a phone booth with him. Like, Buddy is kind of intense, and he's a freaking monster. He's yoked. I would like to see. Fuck it. Anyhow, let's continue on.
Fitzpatrick takes all the snaps during camp to get him ready for the season. Tua then is thrust into the offense midway through the season.
Okay, does anybody in their right mind believe that it was Brian Flores that thrusted Tua onto the field his rookie year? Let me know in chat. Does anyone think that it was Brian Flores' call to thrust, as Warren Sharp says, Tua Tagovailoa into on his rookie season? Damon Williams is taking it right there. I know he didn't do it because literally the week before, when there was questions about it, Brian Flores said, if it were my kid, I wouldn't play him. That's exactly what he said. He said, I wouldn't play him if he was my kid, alluding to him not being prepared and he needed time. Now, a lot of people took that. That's when it really began. That's when the power dynamic in the back office, that's when the fans that liked Brian Flores and loved Tua Tagovailoa, or loved Brian Flores and loved Tua Tagovailoa, and the only fans that came here for Tagovailoa that are all new Dolphins fans, and we know it, we saw the influx, especially in this COVID year when everybody figured out how to work a computer for the first time in their lives. And you know who I'm talking to. They all got on a keyboard warrior thing to be like, whoa. This guy's trying to hold back my dude. Tua Tagovailoa's him. He's immortal. That broken hip was only a facade. Didn't really happen. There's no atrophy. There's no growing pains. I don't think Flores thrusted him in there. Now, maybe the organization did. And if Tua goes out there and fails, isn't that the organization sabotaging Brian Flores?
If you remember, after the season, Chan Gailey comes out and says that he was totally shocked that Flores decided to throw Tua in there because he didn't have a preseason.
Totally shocked that Flores tried to throw him in there. I think we've all established at this point it wasn't Flores that decided to throw him in there. Chan Gailey said he was shocked that the decision was made to put him in there. And yeah, I think Chan Gailey was absolutely shocked because I'm pretty sure Chan Gailey was like, yeah, I'll come here to do a reunion tour with Fitz. I'm not really interested in coaching up a young guy. And that's exactly the type of production and coaching that Tua got, was none from Chan Gailey because the system was going to be changed. And yes, it was very futile to bring in a rookie to train behind a Fitzpatrick in a system that we all knew wasn't going to be the system for Tua. It was a wash of a fucking organizational year. Whether the organization went and decided to let Brian Flores take it the way he wanted and midway through they pulled the plug, that's what it looks like. That's what it was. That's what happened. And the problem is, it seems to me that the carpet got pulled out from underneath Brian Flores. And for better or for worse, he attacked Tua.
And he didn't get any reps, and it was a totally new offense for him. Gailey doesn't make many changes to the offense, forces Tua to play Ryan Fitzpatrick's offense, and obviously it's a disaster. Then you go to 2021. He's got co-offensive coordinators this season. So new set of coordinators, George Godsey and Eric Studesville. These guys have no experience calling plays. It was very confusing who was going to do what.
All right, I'm going to stop it there now. At this point, with Chan Gailey leaving there, and people got to remember something about Chan Gailey, and I talked about this before, right? It's a good old boys club. Chan Gailey is well respected out there, as is a guy like Vic Fangio, just so you guys know. And when you do business with these types of guys and it ends on a bad way, they go around and tell people about it, right? And I'm sure what happened when Chan Gailey left he went around and was telling people, hey, I wouldn't take that Miami offensive coordinating job. Chances are that they're gonna change the whole thing over there. You ain't gonna be the offense coordinator there for long. That's the facts. And also, the Dolphins were trying to get Mike McDaniel there at that time, but they had to settle on this two coaching coordinator, co-offensive coordinator situation, which was a disaster, as we knew. Nobody knew who was calling plays. It was a fucking shit show.
Brian Flores doesn't announce who's going to be doing what. His number one receiver misses 7 games. His receivers have the worst separation in the NFL. He's playing behind the worst offensive line in the NFL yet again. And his running backs ranked 30th in rushing efficiency. So he's got nothing on the ground. His receivers aren't helping. His offensive line is terrible. The play calling is not good. And despite all of that, he improves in nearly every single stable quarterback metric across the board. So you want to look at his overall stats and say, oh, Tua wasn't great.
Well, I think just even if he ran his rookie season, ran everything back for his sophomore season on sheer health alone, and to a not being a COVID year, getting healthier, and a year older, all that stuff, and being in the league as not a rookie, all of those things minimally would have someone be better in every metric, especially with the limited play time he ended up having his rookie season, right? So it's not some grandiose revelation that a rookie got better in their second year, especially with the type of rookie year Tua started with. So I love Warren Sharp. I don't mean to, create a counter argument on him on this whole thing. I know he's very passionate about Tua Tagovailoa, but I feel like you kind of cooked yourself with your own narrative a little bit. But he's not wrong, but all of these same things to me apply to the situation the head coach found themselves in. Now, if you want to talk about how the way in which he handled it and probably taking it on, putting it on the quarterback, that's a different conversation. And I would then also put to the argument on that the organization was doing it too. So equally, that type of stuff was through the organization. And that's all behind us now. Between Tua Tagovailoa and the organization, everything's good. He got paid. He's staying here. Can we put this Brian Flores mess behind us is the real question. And if we can't, then let's make it everything and do something about it. That's where I sit with this Brian Flores thing currently. Let's let this sleeping dog lie. Or let's make it everything. Because if you guys remember, it was first Brian Flores that came out on the I Am Athlete podcast that talked about this. And this is what he had to say way back when.
This is an interesting topic because it wasn't strained. We had a good relationship. It was a player-coach relationship. And I think in a relationship like that, the coach challenges the player. And oftentimes the player challenges the coach. And I think there was a great deal of respect between the two of us. So you hear these crazy this narrative that's out there. But this is a young man who works, who developed and got better over 2 years. And, I think he's got a bright future. And I wish him all the best. So the world can think what it wants to think. I think ask Tua.
He thinks you should ask Tua. And
a coach who did believe in you the way that he did, and the difference between that and what was happening with Flores.
Yeah. Well, to put it in simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right. And then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate. You are the best whatever. You are this, you are that. Like, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? You see what I'm saying? And then you hear it, regardless of what it is, the good or the bad. And you hear it more and more. You start to actually believe that.
Crazy. Not gonna BS. Kinda crazy, right? Definitely two different tales of the events. That's the facts. It's starkly different. I thought we had a great working relationship. This guy told me every day I'm terrible. Sometimes we challenge, the player, and sometimes the player challenges you. I think they just never were ever going to get along. Tua didn't like his tone. He didn't like that his head coach wasn't a guy that he thought he could confide in and link up with and have this personal relationship with. And Brian Flores thought that it's best for a head coach to not have a personal relationship with the quarterback to show that, there's no favoritism and superstardom, and really just two different ideologies. Didn't work out. And I'm ready to quit friggin' talking about it, dude. I'm ready for it to be done. I'm ready for that to be over. Hit the like button, everybody. If you guys are listening on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you guys can find us, X, whatever, listening on Apple Podcast or Streamlabs or whatever, not Streamlabs, Spotify, all that good stuff. Make sure you guys are coming over to YouTube and subscribing over here. And you guys can find where you can find me on all different platforms, from the podcast to the YouTube to Twitter accounts, all that good stuff, and even the TikTok account. I keep forgetting about the TikTok account we got out there. You guys can find all that if you go to tftgnetwork.com, and you can also see all the great stuff we sell at tftgnetwork.com.
Get ready to dive into a new role of online shopping with the Fins Tailgate. Whether you're a die-hard sports fan or just looking for the latest fashion trends, we've got you covered. With a wide variety of products from your favorite sports teams to stylish accessories and home decor, we're your one-stop shop for all things tailgate. Our easy-to-use website and hassle-free checkout process make shopping with us a breeze. Plus, with frequent sales and discounts, you won't want to shop anywhere else. So come on in and join the party at the Fins Tailgate, your new go-to destination for all things tailgate.
Mike wasn't even on. I'm over here talking. Mike ain't even on. TFTGnetwork.com. Make sure you guys are checking it out. Great way to get connected, do all the good stuff, and be a good fan of the Fins Tailgate. Check out all the cool stuff. Search engine is fire. You type in anything in that search engine, and if there's a match, it'll come right up. It's great. Real quick, before we close this episode up, Mike McDaniel talked a little bit about a couple of things. River Craycraft is injured. He's got an upper body injury, not disclosed on exactly what it is, but yeah, he finna be out for some time. It sucks. Seems like every time River Craycraft is going downhill, he crashes downhill. And it's sucks, man. I feel bad for River Craycraft. Hopefully he'll come back, like Mike McDaniel said, stronger and better than ever. And we'll need him. I don't know what that does for his draft status on the team currently. I don't know. Do they protect him? Do they, whatever? I don't know. But it sucks. They also talked about Cam Smith's injury and that he did get a little banged up. I think he said he's day to day or week to week, one of the two. I think it's pretty safe to say he's not going to play in the final preseason game, but will be active and able-bodied probably for week 1. I don't know. Wouldn't really matter anyhow. He's not the starter in it. We do have some rotation guys, but he did get a little banged up. In other news, with Chris Brooks being hurt, badly injured, he's going to be out some time, and Jalen Wright having a nagging injury that I don't think the Dolphins want to play around with, as well as Jeff Wilson, who sustained a broken nose in the first, I think it was in the first preseason game or whatever. Anyhow, they probably don't want to put him in. And we talked about this yesterday. Dolphins are going to look to add some running backs to this roster, and they do. They add Xander Horvath, the fullback running back from the he used to play with the Chargers. He'll get some work in there. And they also added what's his name? Anthony McFarland Jr., who I think he played with the Bears. Who did he play with? Had it somewhere. Where the heck did it go? Huh. Oh, he played with the Steelers. That's right. So 2 running backs coming into here for the Dolphins in this final preseason game, as we expected. This prompted the Dolphins to make some moves. They also signed a linebacker, Daquan Jackson, who played a little bit with the Jaguars, having what's his name go down. They're not going to play any of the starters, and some of the backup guys are injured. Ezekiel Vanderbo, who is injured, he got waived with these moves being made. They also added wide receiver Jaden Jankin or Janky. His shit's janky, dog. They placed Sean Harlow and Willie Snead the fourth on IR injury list. And finally, guys, the time for Salvan Ahmed has come to an end here on this Monday. It's been a long time coming. The guy, had his best performance back in 2020 as a rookie, where he rushed like 21 times for like 100 and change and a touchdown. It was his best performance ever. He always had this speed, but he always would get these foot and leg injuries. So, it's the end of it for him. And friend of the show, Batman, you can rest easy, because it looks like he'll probably end up on another football team soon enough. And you and those guys that owe Salvan Ahmed all that money don't ever have to worry about it ever again. But that's a story for another day. Maybe I'll let Batman come up here sometime and explain himself. But yeah, man, I find it interesting that they put on reserve injury list Willie Snead and Sean Harlow. I've thought, with a little bit of stuff they've done with Sean Harlow, they would have him out there. The fact that they're putting him on a reserve injury list and going to play some of the other guys, tells me that 2 things. 1, we already know River Craycroft's going to be out with some time. And 2, that it looks like, what's his name? Isaiah Wynn's going to be out with some time. And very well, probably longer on the Aaron Brewer timetable than people anticipated. And the Dolphins are looking to stash some interior O-line depth and roll out with probably the 3 guys we've seen start a good portion of the game on Saturday. Eichenberg at center, Cotton at right guard, and Jones at left guard. So it will be interesting to see who plays in this final preseason game coming up against the Tampa Bay Bucks. And it'll be interesting to see who, who makes it. Man, you guys want me to drop the link, huh? I ain't got the energy for it right now, dog. I'll tell you what, though. I'll come on tomorrow night and open up the link if everybody shows up. How about that? I had football practice with the boy today, so we don't have football practice tomorrow. So I'll have some extra energy, and we'll open up the link if you guys want to come through and chat about this stuff. But we'll have some other news to get to as well. But we'll definitely talk about this Brian Flores situation if you want. But I'm closing it down, guys. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for coming through. Appreciate you guys. Catch us tomorrow night. I'll be on tomorrow night for sure. Whether we'll do a panel or not, doesn't matter. I'll come and hang out with you guys for a couple hours, and we'll see you guys next time. Fins up.